Good morning, Facebook. How y'all doing this Sunday? I just wanted to hop on here. Sorry, they made me change my effect. I like a little black tint because the page is called Hidden Horror. So I like the darkness of the tint. But I didn't really find one that I like. So I like the glasses. I actually do wear glasses sometimes. I need to wear them sometimes. So I like the glasses. I'll go with that. It doesn't make me look bad or dark or anything. So anyway, we'll go with the glasses until they eliminate this one too then, I guess. So it's Sunday. It's early in the morning. It's quiet. So I can kind of get on here and say a few things before I start my day. I'm going to go and make an omelet for breakfast. So I just wanted to hop on here for a minute. Not long, not to take up too much time. This weekend I've been watching some different videos. I watch my videos on YouTube. It's a few people that I watch. And I was listening to some things. Nothing really pushed me so much to speak, because I like to wait for things to be confirmed from law enforcement, hopefully first, before I talk about them. I know the gag order had kind of changed a little bit, so I've been hearing some things kind of come out, and I don't like to call things leaks, but there's been some things being said, so I'm not going to talk about those things until they either come out in the trial. And that's the funny thing about trials. It doesn't mean that information didn't exist, and what's out there isn't real. It's just it can't be introduced. So when you have so much information that will never get introduced, it can kind of taint prospective jurors, because they're hearing so much information that's never being actually introduced for consideration. So I try not to do that. There's a lot of information out there, some interesting things, so I'm not going to talk about those things, even though they're in my brain. I have to separate the two and just kind of pin it for later if it comes out. But at the end of the last video, my daughter and I, we were talking a little bit, and I was just telling her, like, because of the circumstances with the timing of when they allege the murders happened and when the 911 call was made, that's a big difference in time, of course. We all see that. We all want to know what happened during that time. Why is there such a big difference in time? Why did the roommates not call? What were the roommates doing? Was anybody else in the house? You know, we have so many questions. Who was called to the house? Who discovered the bodies? Just so many questions. It also makes me want to ponder some things, and I have to go and place myself kind of there. If I was one of the roommates that was not attacked, so if I was the roommate that was on the second floor or the first floor, and I came upon the area, the bedrooms on the second floor, for example, or the third floor, I would like to imagine just taking a photograph in my mind of what the area looked like, because we know that the murders happened in the bedrooms, right? So was there any tracking of blood? I know that a couple of days after the murders, a few days, there was a footprint, and they wanted to get the footprint impression. And I'm thinking, you know, how valuable is that if you have law enforcement in there, you have the roommates in there, you have the other people that came over to the house. You know, how valuable is that footprint days after the murders? So, you know, you got to consider that. But my point is, if you have two murders on the second floor in the bedroom, was the door shut so you could not just walk upon it? You had to open the door? Was the door locked? Was there a locking mechanism? We know there was allegedly locks on the door. So was the door locked from the inside? Right? That's an interesting question, I think, that we need to consider and think about. But more so, what did the open space look like? What did the hallway look like? What did the space from the hallway on the second floor through the walking area through the kitchen to, say, the sliding door? Did that have blood? Did that have footprints? Did that have any body fluids, DNA? Because that's got to be a path, especially for that third floor. We know if the killer went to the third floor and killed the two victims, two roommates on the third floor, that there was a clear path from the third floor to the second floor. Because I know somebody said there's a second set of steps. I still have not seen them. I even went back and watched more layout video, and I still did not see that second set of stairs. So please help me. If you have that, you have the layout video. I still did not see a second set of stairs that goes from the first floor through the third floor, or third floor, first floor, or first floor to second floor. It's just a layout, really, from the second and third floor being kind of disjointed from the structure of the house. I don't see how you could have a set of stairs, really, from the first through the third. But I could be wrong. It seemed like on that second floor, the steps, not too many, maybe less than 8, go right directly to those 2 bedrooms on the third floor. So it's kind of hard for me to think there would be another set of stairs that leads to that area. I just don't think that a second set of stairs is needed. I don't think that there was a set of stairs that would lead you to the second floor balcony. I didn't see that, unless they were built later and they're not in the video or anything. I didn't see steps for the balcony behind the house, the rear of the house. So that's something, we want to think about, is the path, any DNA, any fluids, any material, any footprints that's going from at least the second to the third floor, because we know there's a clear path there. I believe there's a clear path just coming from through the second floor to get to the bedroom on the second floor also. Now, something that we have to kind of consider a little bit more. I was listening to some other YouTubers, and what was very, very interesting, wording is key, it's fundamental in life, right? How you say something, the words that's used, they can really make a big difference in what's being said. What I heard initially was the roommate on the second floor saw the killer pass by. And that meant to me that the roommate could literally be hearing something in her bedroom, opening the door and looking out, and then seeing the killer pass by. And that's how you can kind of identify, well, they're wearing this clothing, they have a mask on, the eyebrows are bushy. I cannot find that complete statement, but I'm going to, because a lot of YouTubers are really harping on the wording, saying that's not a wording that a student, somebody between 18 and 22 would say. I don't know, because I don't have the exact wording of the description, but I'm going to find it. I'm looking for it. And the reason that is so important is because when people are repeating something, the words can be changed, just like my interpretation of what I heard from listening to other YouTubers, and then actually getting something more accurate that was said. So I'm going to tell you what was actually said, and then I've already told you what I heard. That there was a moment where the roommate saw the killer pass by. Possible killer pass by. We'll say possible. Alleged killer pass by. Because we don't know. And that's so important. Until something becomes concrete, something that's more provable, we don't know. And I want you to always have an open mind when you're looking at something, not to be anti it or against it or having to always have a different opinion, but just to have an open mind, right? Especially with this, because the charges are so serious, and the death penalty is on the table. We know that for right now. It can always be taken back. But a lot of people feel that the defense has an uphill battle, a lot of challenges, but they also feel that, information is being pushed out that they want us to believe to lead us into a certain scenario. But we have to wait for the testimony if there's going to be a trial, right? You don't want to make any kind of form an opinion about guilt or innocence until the evidence is put on and cross-examined as well, right? Because they have opportunity for mounting a defense, a strong defense. So what I'm hearing, what was actually said was, instead of her seeing him pass by, what was actually said was, he passed by me. He passed by me. Not, I see, I'm a set distance away, 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever. I've opened up a small crack in my door and I look and I see this person passing by me, but there's distance. No, that's not what was allegedly said. What was allegedly said was, he passed by me. He passed by me. That's a big difference. That's being closely in proximity. There's no distance now. There's no 20 feet. It made sense and it sounded right when there was distance. Yes, you can shut your door quickly, quietly, lock it, and go hide. A person may not have even seen you or heard you. And allegedly, maybe that's why you are still alive. But now the person walked past you physically in close proximity. And I imagine if this person just killed 4 people, 4 human beings, 2 in one room and 2 on the 3rd floor, they're gonna let you stand there and walk past you as if they didn't even see you? One person? Listen, this is starting not to make any sense. Listen, we're logical thinkers, right? Unless this is untrue, unless the wording is wrong again, and that's possible, this doesn't make any sense. When I heard it, I said, let me rest and sit on this for a couple of days. I heard it on Friday. Today is Sunday. My brain had to rest, set it to the side, okay? And think, how is this likely? How is this possible? It's not like you're out of bullets and you had a gun. Even a gun can turn into a weapon. You can hit somebody with it. It's metal. Listen, it's very hard for me to believe that the alleged killer walked past. I don't believe that. There's a lot out there that is saying that the 2 roommates that were not harmed, were not attacked, do not want to testify. They're the only eyewitnesses. We do not have video camera photographs of what happened in that house during that period. And they do not want to testify. They're not the accusers, right? But doesn't the suspect have a right to question them? To know what they know, what they saw, what they heard. Listen, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to believe that a person or persons could be more than one killer allowed a witness, because that's what you are. If you leave somebody behind, they're a witness, a possible witness to what happened. Most people don't let witnesses stay alive unless they don't know that they're a witness and they're alive. They're in the area of the crime. And you have two, not one, but two witnesses. It's hard for me to believe that the suspect walks past as if you were like a ghost and they didn't see you. It's hard to believe that. That's a stretch. I need confirmation. I need that person's testimony. Not a statement that could have been altered. Like, is there a creation of evidence happening? I shared a whole video, right, about one of the officers that did a lot of the work in the investigation. And the things that are coming out about him, the allegations, the planting of evidence. Watch that video, because Koberger's defense counsel wants information on 3 of the officers, and that's just one of the officers. I started watching a second video on one of the other officers, so that would make 2 of the 3, but I had to stop because I was busy and I could not assess and record information in my brain. I could not focus. So when I talk to you guys on Facebook, I can't have a distraction. I can't have sound and TV going and, different distractions, because my brain is in a place, I believe in, it's almost like having a dresser, and each drawer is a place in my brain. So I have this page, and that's all I talk about is true crime. I don't even want to call it true crime. These are real investigations. These involve real people. They're current investigations. So I'll think of a way to name that. But this is one of my pages. I have multiple pages, just where parts of me I get to share with the world. So this is an important page to me, just like all my other pages. And I'm trying to spread myself across all of my pages and have my real life also separate. So there's a lot, but I'm working on it, and I'm doing better with my timing. And as I may not be able to come on all the pages frequently, I will also share information in lieu of always coming on. But this right here, this case right here, it's almost like the case of the century. Like they said that about the O.J. Simpson trial in the 90s. I remember being in high school and watching it in my social studies class. So this is like something akin to that. But getting back to my point, it's very hard for me to think that the assailant allegedly walked past a potential witness and left them alive. I know that people will think, oh, well, this was a targeted attack. The person or persons went in for a certain particular person. Well, then, how did 4 people pass? Well, we know 4 people were murdered, and we don't know if there was a target, who was the target. And by it being 2 people in each room, there was going to be at least 2 people. Or you can think, well, maybe when they got to the first room, that wasn't a person, so they had to keep looking. They went to the 3rd floor, and that's how they found their person. Or they started on the 3rd floor, that wasn't a person, so they came to the second floor, or the people on the second floor heard what was going on the third floor, or vice versa. And that's how it was 4 people. But it's going to be very hard pressed to get someone to believe that the alleged killer walked by and left a witness alive. And it goes to, if this is true, it goes to all the theories that there's something wrong about this investigation. A lot of people feel like this is like a planet, they call it a patsy, like you're planting the evidence, you're planted the sheath, you planted other evidence, you planted these stories, these witness statements, because it doesn't make sense. It just, it's very hard to believe. Even the time frame that they're saying the 4 murders happened, they're saying it's approximately 8 minutes. I'm not saying that that's not true or possible. I'm just thinking in the span of 8 minutes. Let me see. I don't know how long I've been on this live, but I'm sure it's more than 8 minutes. So do you think that's possible? They say I could do like a poll, and maybe I'll do that if I start getting people and followers, to see what people think, their opinion, So anyway, there was one other thing I kind of want to talk about, and this is what I started with when I was talking about my daughter. I am also interested in the medical examiner's toxicology screen for the 4 victims. Now, I know the defense will probably be interested as well. And the reason that I'm interested in a toxicology screen, because if there was autopsies done by the medical examiner, at the age that the students were, being very young and being murdered, something that they could take the next step and do is a toxicology screen. And I will put on my page what a toxicology screen is, like more medically, but I'm going to tell you what it is from my knowledge. A toxicology screen can determine and what I'm looking for is any substances in the body. For example, if there's alcohol, they can tell you the level. If there's any drug use, they can tell you the amount of the drugs. And sometimes they can even see how long ago you used those drugs. Like, they can clip a piece of your hair, right? And they can go back about 10 years to see what kind of drug use you have. And then, of course, they take your urine, they take your blood, different things. So we want that toxicology screen because I would like to know if any of the victims had any alcohol in their system, which they probably do. I don't know. They went out that night, or everybody went out and they had fun and they enjoyed themselves. So they may have had a beverage. I don't know. Or should I call it a spirit? Alcoholic beverage spirit. And then drug use. Because there have been some things not confirmed yet, not proven. And I know some of the family have come against it and said, no, they were not selling drugs. They did not, from my knowledge, say they weren't using drugs. But that's an allegation. Something that had came out a while ago was that people thought that they had overdosed. And in the past, there have been some prior instances of fentanyl overdose. And as we see, my daughter just did a big project through a program that she has at school, talking about fentanyl use and how so many people are died from overdoses. And we can see across the country that that's accurate, that increase in fentanyl use and people dying from overdoses is common. And what they're calling is like a bad batch of drugs, where fentanyl is put into those drugs and then they're dying from an overdose. So that was a rumor that possibly the students were given a bad dose of drugs, dying from the overdose, and then as a cover-up to that, that's where the slayings came in. I don't know if that's true, but that's something that has been rumored and has been going around for a while. And people are saying that they were selling drugs. I have not had any concrete confirmation of that, but that is something that's commonly said. So let's get the toxicology screen for all 4 students. Let's disprove that. Not just say no, it's not true. The toxicology screen will show what drugs, if any, alcohol, medications, anything is in their system. And that would also go to if they were impaired the night of the murders. If they could have possibly been impaired, maybe not having the ability to fight back, to be able to react in a way to save their lives. Maybe they were asleep. I don't think so, because they have those cell phones in the activity. And I know the 2 on the 3rd floor were active online. Now the other 2 had ordered food and it was delivered about 4 or 5 a.m. So we know that they were up because the delivery was made, and you can see that they ate the food, and the medical examiner can confirm that too, their last meal. If there's still something there that hasn't been processed through their body, they'll be able to see that. But we pretty much know that they ate the food because the container, I guess, was placed in the kitchen. So we do know that. And that's why they're estimating the time of the murder from the delivery, and then I guess some activity with allegedly the car leaving that area. But I've seen videos. There's a lot of white cars. So I don't know if the car that the suspect has allegedly has a GPS system in there that can show you from one area to another area, how the distance and how long it took. And then if you turn the car on, is it picking back up where you are? And then following the path that you're on. I know my car has that GPS, the driving directions and things like that. So it could be very well recorded everywhere I go. I mean, it's already installed on my car. I necessarily didn't want it. I do use it through my phone. And then if I connect my phone, or my husband set my phone up to connect to my car, so my phone calls and I answer the phone, everybody hears my conversation because it's all connected to my car. So when I get in the car, my phone connects. I'm like, this is so embarrassing, like talking to my mom. But we don't talk about anything, but still, no privacy. What can you do? But if I do my GPS driving directions, it connects right to the car. So I don't know if that's what they're considering. And maybe they took the history of the car, the brain of the car, and can see comings and goings and what time and how long it took. I don't know. But they're saying that window of time was 8 minutes for the murders. So that's a pretty tight window for 1 or 2 people. But we will see. If this goes to trial with this particular suspect, a lot of this will be clear. So we will have to be intentional about watching that trial and then kind of talking about it later, things that are coming out in the testimony. So that's all I really want to talk about. I didn't want to be on here long because a lot of stuff I don't want to get involved in, even though it's kind of interesting about the officers and their history. It's kind of like what happened with the OJ trial with Mark Fuhrman. It really hurt the trial with OJ when Mark Fuhrman allegedly planted the glove, because that one act introduced the idea that if you plant evidence, you kind of taint the case. You kind of give an unfairness to the defense to try to make it appear as if something has happened and it didn't happen. But on top of that, the evidence that you do have, it doesn't get looked at the same, because now you've introduced reasonable doubt. You've introduced suspicion. And some people, they are already initially suspicious of the police, you know, in history or things that have happened in the media and the news that come out. So some people are just suspicious of the police. They don't believe that the police are any better than anybody to do something like a criminal act. So it's kind of hard because some of the things that are coming out, it almost appears that it's kind of like a similar Mark Furman situation with the glove, with the potential of maybe people feel a sheath could have possibly been planted. And I had shared some videos about touch DNA. The video with the woman at the conference, that's the video that I feel, and I try to give you like multiple views. So not just learn about touch DNA, but like the fallacies of what could happen, mistakes, things that are known, but they still use it. Because they're figuring that the mistakes kind of outweigh the benefit, because they are able to find criminals. They are able to place criminals at these scenes through touch DNA. But touch DNA have some issues, baby. I could literally be sweating. Those drops could drop onto an object. The object can be picked up, placed somewhere, and then later it becomes a crime scene, and it can be part of evidence that places my DNA there. Even though I've never been there, don't know anything, have no knowledge, you know, I'm not involved in the crime. Could probably have an alibi, probably being with my family, something like that. But my DNA is now at a crime scene. Or you could shake someone's hand. Or you could touch your book. Like, this is a college campus, right? I'm thinking in terms, not so much of the defense, but just on how the touch DNA works. If you're on campus and you're a student, or you're in the classrooms, there's books, there's labs, there's desks, tables, there's common areas, there's, I remember when I was going to school at night, I would go to the vending machines because I need something to drink, something to snack on, some nuts or some chips, something to keep me going. Because I'm not having a full meal because my class says 3 hours and this includes a lab. So I'm trying to keep going, get my energy up so I can stay focused. And I'm out there pushing those buttons, not thinking, hey, let me put a glove on to give me some snacks out the vending machine or get a beverage. So there was tough times in college. Listen, I had to sit at the table with everybody else, you know, sit in groups, go to the library, go study, work in groups at times, go to the union. I would go and order my Wendy's and sit down and study between classes because I didn't want to leave. I didn't live on campus after my first year, so I didn't want to leave and go home. For my next class, I might have a little break. Sometimes I would stagger my classes to give me a little break so I could go to the other side of campus or stop and get a snack or just get to my other class. So things like that with that touch DNA is really a transfer. You're touching something or you're dropping fluids. It's not like you can place my hair there. I mean, I ain't got much of it, but I got a little bit, right? So you're not necessarily taking something like a known sample like my hair or my blood or my saliva. You would get my saliva more so on a Pepsi can. So I'm see if I have one right there. Or maybe a straw from drinking something, right? You would get my saliva from there. But there's other forms that have your DNA from besides your blood. You know, your skin cells. So it is really that easy. So was the police interacting with Kohlberger to where they could have possibly got his DNA? That's something that we need to process. We know that there were 2 stops, and they're saying that the FBI were not involved in those stops. What's the likelihood of being stopped twice on the freeway? And I think they were saying that he was like riding behind somebody too closely or something, and that's why they stopped him on the highway. I thought, wow, gee, that's really odd. It seems like intentional. This seems like those stops were intentional, even though they're saying, hey, they were not part of their investigation. Just seems like almost like they're trying to, they have a suspect, and now they may be trying to put together information to attach to him. And that's not how investigations work. Well, they could, though. Let me say this. You can have an idea. Say you're doing interviews and somebody says, well, I think you should kind of look into this person. This is why I think you should look into them. They can place them at the scene, or their behavior has changed, or they believe that they're capable of something like this. So the police may have an idea to, hey, start looking out and watching them a little bit, maybe bring them in for an interview. I'm not sure if that's happened in this case with the Idaho 4 murders, but it seems like they have a suspect first, and then the evidence is kind of being backed into. But that could also be just from investigation, because this is a hard crime scene. It's 4 murders, 4 bodies. You have a huge house. You have 3 floors. You have an exterior, and then you have the interior. So you have virtually a crime scene that probably includes their vehicles, the outside, the front, the inside, and then you're right next to the university. You're pretty much the extension of the university, because the university is literally walking distance. So you're part of that sorority and fraternity row where you have housing for all of the students that are in sororities and fraternities. So that's a lot of students. I mean, you could have easily had, a lot of interviews. Not just people like providing tips, but interviews, especially like close to the house, which, there's houses everywhere over there. So that's just something to think about, how the evidence is kind of coming together. I just think, we need to wait for the testimony, wait to see what's introduced into evidence, because it's kind of being tried in the court of public opinion. I think that could be a situation like with Mark Furman, looking at these officers, seeing the officer actions, seeing, what their experience is. Do you have an experience, working crime scenes? Are you a detective? Are you an investigator? Are you on the forensic team? Are you going in to collect the evidence? Because another thing that I thought was kind of odd, I don't mean to keep adding to the video, but it's just coming to me. It's not in my notes. I only have one note. And that was about the toxicology screen, which I will post the medical definition. But the other thing was, the medical examiner did not arrive. She had did a interview, and I put it on the page, where she said she waited 5 hours to arrive at the scene. And she said the reason that she waited, because she knew that they would have to process the scene, and she knew that they could not move the bodies until she got there, which is true. It's like that in my state. I'm not in Idaho. 5 hours? That's a long time. That's a long time from the time of the death to the time where the medical examiner comes on site, because they cannot remove those bodies. So they can look in the area, they can photograph, they can do videos, but you do not want to alter the crime scene. For example, part of figuring out what happened in the case is figuring out, is this a natural death, or is this a death, say, by suicide or murder or accidental? You have to figure that out, because a lot of people can die from just ordinary means. They pass away. And then you can have a death where it's accidental. You can have a workplace accident, for example. I mean, you can have so many different types of accidents. You can have a death from car accident. But when it's murder, you see those stabbings, you know that it's not a natural death. It's a unnatural death, an unnatural cause. So that's where the medical examiner would come in and view the scene, notate what's going on with the scene, how you found it, any known evidence. The medical examiner may say, is there any medication out? Is there any drug paraphernalia out? You know, collect that drug paraphernalia. If there's any medication, you want to collect the medication, because when you do the toxicology screen, you want to make sure that what's on those pill bottles, if you find them on a toxicology screen, they should match up, right? So those are kind of like things that the medical examiner would do besides examining the body, you know, determining, oh, this is not a natural death, this is a stabbing. And when they take that body to the medical examiner's office, then a more detailed review and processing has to happen, where they're going to strip those bodies down, take the layer of clothing, take photographs of the injuries, measure the injuries, count the injuries, notate any marks, any bruising, things like that. So I don't want to go too far into medical examiner's responsibility, but you kind of get the idea that waiting for 5 hours, it does give the police time, but there's no clock on stop investigating. Even if the medical examiner comes immediately, does her privy review of the scene, of those circumstances, then they have them put into body bags, remove the bodies, the investigation still goes on. Now, one thing you can say is, by the bodies waiting so long to be picked up and the medical examiner waited so long to come, that gave them time to take pictures and video with the bodies still there in their original condition, because no one should move them, no one should really enter into those spaces. You want everything the same. So if there's an open door, you want to keep it open. If there's an exit door that's open, we want to keep that open so we know the circumstances of when we come upon it. That doesn't mean that it wasn't altered, because we know other people came from the outside onto the scene. So that alters the scene. That adds additional fingerprints, footprints. So everybody that was there, we need your DNA now. We need your footprints. What size shoe? What type of shoe you were wearing? Your fingerprints, because your fingerprints are going to be at the scene. Remember the idea of when you come into a scene, you're bringing something and taking something away? So now by you entering the scene, you have now altered the scene. You have brought something in, and you're probably going to take something away. Same thing with like all the officers that have to secure that scene. So all of that has to be considered, right? All of it has to be considered. I may talk about some cases that I was involved in. I may, which will be separate. And I will probably just take maybe 1 or 2 cases of video just to kind of discuss what happened in those scenes. Not sure. I'm thinking about it still. You know, I will make a decision on that. This is something I was thinking of before I started the page, and it was going to be part of why I started the page, because I want people to really connect with not just death investigations, but when there's crime, when there's people that are killed, even though you may not be impacted, it impacts the community in a way And it's something that we have to start working on, is reducing the violence. We need more support with the mental health services for all ages, for young and older. We have a lot of mass shootings in this country. We have a lot of people that's upset, angry, hurt, that have no one to talk to. And even if they did, they may still commit some type of violence. But if we do have some options there to be alternative to some of the violence that's happening across the country, we want to try to make that happen, to make those services available for people, because we're having like more than one mass shooting every day. So it's really, scary out here. So I just want to thank you for watching my video. I hope that it helps you. I hope that it gives you some information, some knowledge, some support in the area of forensics, policing, police evidence, collection of evidence, how crime scenes work, how evidence should be processed. I want to talk about those things because that is my passion. That's something that I love. Some of my favorite shows were like Columbo, Matlock, Murder, She Wrote. I still watch Columbo to this day. They have reruns every weekend. I will leave my TV on Columbo, and my husband lets me do it because he loves me. And we watch two separate TVs, and that's how we have peace. So I've always had a passion since I was a little girl with my dad watching Columbo. And my interest turned into a passion that turned into me wanting to go to college and study forensics. And I did not land in that area, but I did do some work. So it's something that I enjoy, and I want to continue. It's part of, like I said, my many pages, many parts of myself. Okay? So thank you for checking out this video. I hope to see you in the next video. And I just want to say, have a great day. Stay blessed. Happy Sunday, everybody. Bye.